He thought it was just another ordinary afternoon. Walking home, backpack slung over his shoulder, music in his ears. But one wrong glance, one false assumption, and everything changed. In moments, flashing lights and cold handcuffs replaced his freedom. The charge? Something he didn't even understand. The punishment? Far worse than anyone could imagine. But when his father arrived at the courthouse, the truth hit like a thunderclap. Who was this man that made the room fall silent, and why were they suddenly afraid? Marcus Johnson was just 17, a senior in high school with college applications, on his desk, and a basketball game that night. Most days his biggest worry was whether he'd make it home in time for dinner before his dad got back from D.C. Everyone in his neighborhood knew Marcus as the kid who helped carry groceries for elderly neighbors and never missed Sunday service. Life felt simple, predictable, safe. That afternoon, the autumn sun dipped low as Marcus cut through the same side street he'd walked 100 times before. His earbuds played his favorite track, drowning out the hum of a car creeping behind him. He didn't notice the tinted windows, didn't see the faces watching him. Why would he? This was his neighborhood, his world. But inside that car, assumptions were already being made. A hoodie, a backpack, the wrong skin color in the wrong place. That was all it took. By the time Marcus saw the flashing lights in his periphery, it was already too late. The officers weren't interested in who he was, only in who they thought he was. And as Marcus stood frozen in the glow of red and blue, he had no idea how far this would go, or who he would need to call to survive it. The officer's voice cut through the music in Marcus's ears like a blade. "Hands where I can see them!" In an instant, the world around him blurred. The beat in his earbuds stopped, the autumn air turned sharp, and his heart pounded so hard he could barely hear himself breathe. He hadn't done anything, he knew that. But in that moment, it didn't matter. 2 squad cars boxed him in, lights bouncing off brick walls. People slowed on the sidewalk whispering, phones raised. Not to help, just to watch. Marcus tried to speak, to ask what was happening, but the officer's hand went straight to his holster. "Don't move! I'm not... Down! Now!" The pavement scraped his palms as they shoved him to the ground, knees digging into his back. A crowd gathered, some shaking their heads, some filming every second. Marcus wanted to scream that they had the wrong person, but the weight of a gun barrel against his neck stole the words from his throat. Then came the lie. "We got him. Armed suspect matches the description." Marcus froze. Suspect? Armed? He didn't even own a pocket knife. But the officers didn't care. They'd decided who he was before they asked his name. The cuffs bit into his wrists as they yanked him up and shoved him toward the car. Someone in the crowd shouted, "He's just a kid!" Another yelled, "What did he do?" But no one stepped in. Fear kept everyone silent, even as Marcus's eyes pleaded for someone, anyone, to stop this. At the station, they threw him into a holding cell, no explanation, no phone call. Hours passed. He heard snippets of their conversation through the bars, gang activity, robbery suspect, judge won't go easy. They weren't building a case, they were writing a story, one where Marcus was already guilty. When they finally dragged him into court, the prosecutor painted him as a dangerous criminal. No evidence, no weapon, just a credible tip in the color of his skin. Marcus stared at the judge, hoping for reason, for fairness, but saw only cold indifference staring back. And then, the gavel came down. Life in prison. The words didn't even sound real. Life? For what? Marcus couldn't breathe, couldn't move. Around him, the courtroom murmured in shock, but no one stopped the sentence. As they led him away in shackles, Marcus finally spoke 4 words, quiet, but sharp enough to cut through the room like glass. "Call my father, now." The officers laughed, thinking it was just another scared kid bluffing. But when the clerk asked who his father was, the air shifted. The whispers started. The judge's eyes flickered with sudden recognition. Because Marcus's father wasn't just any dad. He was the U.S. Attorney General, and he was already on his way. The courtroom doors burst open just as Marcus was being led away in shackles. Every head turned. A man in a dark suit strode in, his face calm but his eyes burning with controlled fury. Marcus didn't have to look twice. He knew that walk. His father, the U.S. Attorney General. The judge stiffened. The prosecutor went pale. But the officers holding Marcus only tightened their grip, as if proving they still held the power. Release my son. Now. His father's voice was steady, but it cut through the room like a blade. No one moved. The bailiff shifted nervously. The judge cleared his throat, fumbling for words. This court has already ruled. This isn't a ruling, his father snapped. It's an execution without evidence, and it ends today. He stepped closer, dropping a folder thick with documents onto the bench. Phone records, surveillance footage, sworn statements, all proving Marcus was nowhere near the scene of the crime. The officers who arrested him exchanged worried glances. The lies they'd told were unraveling in real time. But Marcus barely heard the words. All he could feel were the cuffs cutting into his wrists, the weight of injustice pressing down. Would they actually listen, even to the Attorney General? Or would they double down, proving that no one, not even the highest law officer's son, was safe? The room buzzed with tension. Cameras clicked. Reporters whispered. The judge's gavel struck the bench, but no one quieted. For the first time, Marcus saw fear, not in his own eyes, but in theirs. And then his father leaned in, voice low but carrying through the chamber. If you do not release my son immediately, I promise this courtroom will not be the only place where justice is served. The room went silent, and in that silence, everyone knew. The real fight was just beginning. Marcus walked out of the courthouse a free man, but freedom didn't feel the same anymore. The cuffs were gone, yet their mark remained, raw, red, and unforgettable. His father had cleared his name in minutes, but it hadn't erased the hours of terror, the lies told without hesitation, or the fact that his skin had been seen as guilt, before his voice was ever heard. News cameras swarmed them as they left the building, microphones flashing like weapons. Some called it a victory. Marcus wasn't sure. A victory meant you'd won something. What had he won? A reminder that without his father's power, he might already be serving a sentence for a crime he didn't commit. The case ignited headlines and protests. People debated laws, accountability, and systemic racism. But for Marcus, it wasn't politics. It was personal. He'd seen how fast the world could decide who you are without knowing your name. He spent nights replaying every second. The flashing lights, the judge's cold eyes, the crushing sound of that gavel. And he knew this wasn't just his story. It was happening to kids who didn't have someone powerful to fight for them. Kids who never made it home. So Marcus spoke out. He stood on stages, in classrooms, in front of cameras, not for himself, but for those who couldn't. He demanded more than apologies. He demanded change. Because this wasn't about one courtroom, one mistake, or one boy with a powerful father. It was about a system that still measures justice by the color of your skin. The question is, how many Marcus Johnsons will it take before the world finally decides? Enough is enough. The stories presented on this channel are works of fiction, created solely for entertainment purposes. We believe in a world where all people are treated equally under the law and where society advances through fairness, justice, and progress. Our goal is to share meaningful, thought-provoking stories that inspire positive change. Any resemblance to actual persons, events, or organizations is entirely coincidental and unintentional. These stories do not reference real, individuals, incidents, or entities, and are not intended to convey any political or religious messages.